My name's Dr. Jane Reeves and I'm one of the co-directors of the Centre for Child Protection at the University of Kent. The Centre for Child Protection came into being in 2012 and what we have done, the work we have done at the centre has been to develop different approaches to teaching and learning using simulations. And what I'd like to do today is give you a little bit of background as to why we've done that, but also to take you through some of the detail of the actual games to show you how we've used them and how we're using them in teaching and learning, not only with professionals but also latterly with young people. So child protection is a very difficult topic in terms of teaching and learning. It's a difficult topic to understand, it's a difficult topic to do in terms of a job, and it's very complex and it has lots of different key elements in it. I've been a social work educator and academic for many years, and the resources that I had to use were quite simply paper case studies, films, discussion and research articles and reading and books. And that felt very out of kilter with the modern age, with contemporary society. So what I wanted to do, along with my co-director, Professor David Shemmings, was to look and see whether or not we could use existing technologies from the entertainment and digital industries to see if we could build simulations in terms of teaching and learning in child protection. So let's take it right back and look at how people learn best. And as you can see from the slide behind me, that actually one approach suggests that even the very best lecture in the very best university, you will only retain 5% of that learning. You can increase that by giving students things to read and showing a film, as I mentioned earlier, and having a discussion. But what we really want to do in the modern age is to get people to retain that learning up to 70 and 90%. And what we did was, in the year before the centre was set up, we spent a year going around looking at how other professions train their professionals in related quite complex areas. So for example, airline pilots, yes, they will use planes, yes, they will try out planes, yes, they will fly them, but they also use simulations. They go in the simulator and spend many, many hours in there practicing risks, practicing for different disasters, practicing for when things go wrong. And I spent some time with doctors at a number of universities looking at how they use resources like, for example, Second Life, where they build a ward and the doctors have to go round this virtual ward, carry out different procedures virtually before they're allowed to practice on patients. So that was quite influential to us actually, and myself and Professor Shemmings came back to the university, thought long and hard, were there techniques in that we could use in terms of training for child protection? Behind me you'll see Lara Croft, and Lara Croft is a very famous international game that's played by many different people from many different walks of life. And what's good about Lara Croft and the Tomb Raider series is that it's an engaging game, it has engaging characters, it's got a fantastic plot and storyline that unfolds as you interact with it and you become immersed in it. So you take some of the decisions, you, through Lara, take some of those risks. And what we wanted to do was to think about how we could use some of those gaming techniques to be incorporated into a simulation in child protection. So were there characters, stories, cases that we could incorporate to make learning in child protection much more interactive? When you're training for child protection, one of the great difficulties is that you go on placement, you have your teaching and learning sessions in the classroom, but actually it's quite difficult to bring all of those together. You do that on your placement, but it is often time limited, and fairly obviously you have to really think about the families that you're intervening with. What simulations offer is that opportunity to be able to practice safely in a safe environment the unfolding story and the unfolding learning situation of a home visit. It gives you time to reflect, and it gives you time to bring that research and theory together. We need to move beyond that paper case study. We need to think about using arcade techniques, if you like, in a simulation to encourage social workers and other professionals involved in child protection to learn in a different way. So what can we do in a simulation then? And they're often referred to as arcade tasks, including being able to click on the characters, being able to click on the icons on the screen, having a score, being able to rag rate, for example, red, amber and green, making decisions that alter the outcome of the simulation, having different verbal responses that you can click onto and see how that alters what happens and how the story plays out, and having a log, perhaps a log for concerns, and being able to type in your perspective and your view at particular points in the game, as well as having discussion points. So the simulations that we've developed so far, we couldn't have imagined developing when we started in 2012, and they're broadly in two main areas. The first area is for professionals, so the simulations are just for professionals, and the second is for professionals and for young people to use. All our simulations are based on research, so they're based on research that's been carried out in the area, they're based on the theoretical knowledge that goes alongside that, but they're also based upon interprofessional learning sets. So we write the simulation with a group of other professionals who are all involved in the topic, and they all contribute. So it gives it a really interprofessional feel. So Rosie 1 is about a seemingly benign case where you go into the family and what actually happens and unfolds turns into a case of sexual abuse. Rosie 2 is a continuation of that story. It's the same case 5 years on, and it's the same family living in different circumstances, and the presenting problem and issue there is neglect. And so we visit the characters over 13 scenes and talk to them, talk to the different characters, and negotiate our way around the home and the home visit using those different arcade kinds of skills. Zach is built as a Facebook type story. It's built interprofessionally between Kent Police, KCC and the University Centre for Child Protection, and it looks at how a young man, Zach, is radicalised as he makes the transition from home to university. And through his iSocialite page, you are able to rag rate as red, amber and green whether you think the posts are about Zach being groomed. So you look through his story, you interact, and you make your decisions about how and if you think Zach is being groomed. Looking Out for Lottie is our most recent simulation, and that is on child sexual exploitation, and that looks at a story of a young girl, a seemingly ordinary young girl going to an ordinary school, and looks at how she is groomed by Jake, who is an 18-year-old young man, and how initially she feels really flattered that she has the attention of this older young man, and it looks at the processes and techniques that he uses to groom Lottie, and that's done through the iSocialite Facebook type page, but also through the use of WeTube and hashtag, which is an alternative to Twitter, and an Instagram alternative also. So he uses a variety of different social media to groom her. The simulation we're working on now is with CAFCAS, a national organisation, and the simulation is called Rosie Goes to Court, and that is to give young people the experience of a court environment before they actually go into court, and it's also for professionals to practice and re-practice how they are in the court arena with the judge and with other professionals. So does this approach work then? Using simulations in terms of teaching and learning allows us to evaluate in a different way. So we can and have evaluated using evaluation forms and questionnaires and focus groups. and we've done that with Zach, but it also allows us to use existing technologies, but perhaps ones that haven't been used in terms of child protection. So for evaluating Rosie 2 on neglect, we were able to use eye tracker and facial recognition software for the professionals to go through and play the simulation, and at the same time have their facial emotions and expressions recorded. And what that enables us to do is to almost get into the unconscious of professionals who might be involved in working with neglect, and look at the kind of effects that that has on them. And what we found from social workers and health visitors playing through Rosie 2 was that overwhelmingly the emotion shown on the faces of health visitors was sadness, and overwhelmingly the emotion shown on the faces of social workers was disgust. And that wasn't disgust for the family circumstances, that was actually disgust in terms of the responses Rosie was giving in terms of how she talked about her family. So we're able to get a different layer of knowledge by using simulations in terms of what practitioners actually feel about what they're seeing. Thank you very much for listening.